guys are familiar with, well, Python is the scripting language, along with Perl. And so basically these guys are just languages that were designed to make simple mathematical operations. Let's see. And the major difference between a scripting language and a programming language like Java, you'll see right now, it's really simple. So for Python, if I just want to print out something like hi, it's just basically print hi, while in, not semicolon. While in Java, you gotta do this. So if I have to teach this to like an 8-year-old, this is a lot easier. While this guy, we have to show him what the heck is the class, what's the public represents, what's the static, all these things that it just pretty much defeats the purpose of just printing out hello on a console. This eraser doesn't work. Okay. This one doesn't work. Okay, it's alright. Alright, so basically, here's how do you make a simple Python script right now? To do so, let's create a Python script called, I don't know, hate. Hate.python. Alright, the first thing you need to do is make this guy executable. This is just this is easy to just, all you have to do is just make an empty script. You just do touch hate.python. Or vi or nano. Nano, the same thing. Alright? So once you do that, you gotta make it executable, because right now it's just a text file. So to make it executable, you do this. chmod user plus executable hate.python. So user can execute hate.python. Okay, so how do you, so this is inside hate.python. So once you do a nano on hate.python, you can, the first thing you have to do is this. Hash user bin Python. Alright, so what this means, this hash symbol actually represents a comment. The Python interpreter should not read anything in a hash. But this is a special case actually. On Linux, you need to specify this at the very top of the Python script. Without it, if you were to execute the hate.python, so to execute it, you just do a // and then your file. But without this header, Linux is going to assume that this is a bash script, not a Python script, and you're going to get these awful, ugly errors. Now, if you still don't like this header, do you think it's ugly or something? No worries. You can omit this, but you have to type in Python all the time. If you're lazy, I would recommend doing this and just do this. Pretty simple. Okay. So once you got the header down, then you can do your print hi. And once you execute hate.python, it's going to print out hi. Now another thing you can do, print is actually really nice. It's really powerful in the concept that you can do this. Okay. So what this means is you're allocating 5 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then here, you're going to be printing out a string. So let's assume that A is equal to fun. So we will be allocating 5 columns, and you're going to put fun right here. Next, you're going to have this is, you're going to be allocating 4 spaces, and you're going to be allocating 7 decimal points for your floating. So let's say B, let's assume B is like 2.6. Right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you'll be out, so you can have up to 7 decimal places. If you want to make it less, you just make it 2 or 3 or 1. If you want to put leading zeros, so if you're saying like it's 2.6, but you only have, you want to allocate 2 decimal places, you add the 0 before the number. So you can do this, 2.60. So that's, in order for, so to put variables, to actually output your variables, you gotta have a placeholder, the modulus operator, the number of columns you want to allocate, and then the definition, what your variable is. S represents a string, F represents a floating point, and then another one you're going to see is D, which represents a decimal integer. Alright, but okay, so what on earth does that mean? I'll show you right now. Oh, by the way, in Perl, it's the same thing. Pound, exclamation mark, user, bin, Perl. Okay. Alright, so we have variable names. A is equal to 1, B is equal to 9,000, C is equal to 4.28. Alright, so what does each of them represent? So basically in any programming language, this represents a variable name, a placeholder. This equals is an assignment operator, and this is our value. If our value is under quotes, double quotes, this represents a string. If our value is not in quotes, but it's a whole number, meaning there's no decimal, this means this is an integer. If our value has a decimal, we call it a float or double. Alright, so, okay, here's an interesting thing. What if I do this? A is equal to C.
C has to equal something?
Right, so right now our C is initialized as 4.6, but A initialized as a string. But if I assign A equals to C, I'm overwriting A's value with C's value. So A would now have 4.28. So you just changed, basically you have overwritten, so A is no longer a string, it is now a floating point. What if I do this? C is equal to 90. C will be overwritten with an integer, but what about A? Would it still be 4.28? Yes, it actually does. It still remains, it's just a copy. Once you guys know is that every programming language, these guys represent a primitive data types. String represents an object, but the primitive data types just basically shows you a copy. It makes a copy, and so if this guy has been overwritten, A will remain the same. We'll still keep C's value. And in programming, computer science, this is our swap method. So you have a temp value. So if you want to swap A with B value, you assign A's value to a temp. Next, you overwrite A's value with B, and then you give B the temp value, what was originally an A, and that's the swap method. So if whenever you need to do a swap, this is it. Same concept. All right, so how does this relate to, say, for the lab? So once you have now you can place numbers or strings or doubles. You can do mathematical operations on them. So let's say I have a string is equal to A. Okay, actually much more. I string 2 is equal to if I do this, sum is equal to string plus string 1 plus string 2. What would I get, basically?
I hate you.
I hate you. If you do a plus on a string, it's just going to concatenate or merge them, combine them. So it's going to be I hate you. You'll notice that I actually put a space here. That counts as a string. So if I do this, there's a function called length, len. This basically gives me the length of our string. And you're going to be using that a lot. So if I do a length of str2, what would it return? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to return 6. That function. So if I do a print statement, here I'll give you a more practical example. If I do a print, total is, so length is going to return an integer. So what would be my value? Is it going to be an S, an F, or a D? If it's going to return a decimal or an integer. Right. So I'll just say, I'll allocate 5 spaces, D. And then I got to do the modulus to add the variable. So it's going to be len str2. And it's going to print out total is 6. Alright. Any questions? No? Okay, cool. Okay, so let's do a number operation then. So you can do add, you can do subtract, you can do multiply, and you can do divide. I think. That's it, yeah. So I can do a plus b, a times b, a times a minus b, a divided by b. Here's a nice thing. How do you do a power? So if I want to do 2 to the 4th power, how do you do that? In Python, you just do, so let's say a is equal to 2 and b is equal to 4. Okay, so let's say a is equal to 2, b is equal to 4. To get the power, 2 to the 4th power, you do this. A star star b. So that's pretty convenient. If you like, another way of doing getting the power is you have to right in here import. You got to import the math library, and then you can do this. Capital M math.powab. But technically, I think this is a lot more easier to do. I mean, this has to do more grunt work on this. And we'll focus more on the math library later on. So, okay. Any questions so far? No? Okay, cool. Yay.
I think we're running out.